Hey, what's up, everybody? Tony with La Lita Loca back with a cruise news update. Better news today for the MS Zaandam. Obstacles being removed from that cruise ship to possibly allow it to dock and passengers to disembark. We're going to look at it on today's episode of the La Lita Loca Cruise Show. Another update on the MS Zaandam. Thanks for stopping by the show. If you enjoy cruising, if you like being updated daily, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. That way you don't miss out on any of the episodes. When we left this story yesterday, one of the biggest obstacles facing the MS Zaandam and now its sister ship, the MS Rotterdam, is that they were not going to be allowed to transit the Panama Canal. The Panamanian government saying that anybody that had been determined to be sick would not be allowed to transit the canal. Well, the Panamanian government relented last night, citing humanitarian causes, allowing these ships to transit the Panama Canal with very strict restrictions. No one allowed off of those cruise ships, but there will be an upcoming transit of the Panama Canal by the MS Zaandam. That has not been scheduled yet. The only thing that has been verified is that the transit has been approved by the Panamanian government. But as you know, getting through the Panama Canal only half the battle. What port will take this cruise ship in? There's been extensive talks with the folks at Port Everglades to see if they would receive these passengers in Fort Lauderdale. And it's been touch and go, and honestly, there hasn't been a clear yes from Fort Lauderdale, but some things have been happening that may indicate that they are prepared to take these passengers in. The Transit Authority developing a series of requirements that the cruise ship has to meet before it can dock. These requirements will be voted on by the City Council on Tuesday, and that could essentially prepare the way for the MS Zaandam to have a place to dock in the state of Florida. It's a very delicate situation, with many of the county commissioners there in Broward County speaking out with concerns about allowing this cruise ship to dock at Port Everglades. In an effort to allay the concerns of the city commissioners, Port Everglades Saturday sent out the list of guidelines that the cruise ship would be required to meet. Again, this is all in advance of a vote on Tuesday. Here is a list of some of the requirements that will be mandated before this cruise ship can disembark passengers. First and foremost on the requirement, all illnesses must be disclosed and accurately documented before anyone will be allowed to disembark. There have been multiple stories of cruise ships coming into port, passengers disembarking, only to later find out that there were people on board that had symptoms. There were people on board that had potentially tested positive. I can think of at least one instance where potentially the cruise line knew some information that the health officials at the port didn't know, and it was a mess, and only found out afterwards. It seems like some of these port authorities are learning from these other situations. And so first and foremost, the Port Everglades are asking for an accurate documentation of the current status of the passengers on the cruise ship. Second requirement is that the cruise line, Holland America, at their own expense, will provide all protective equipment to all responders. At the minimum, there must be a temperature reading of all passengers and crew leaving the cruise ship. And another requirement for the cruise line is that they provide all of the transportation at their own expense for the final destination of these passengers if they're required to go to quarantine or to be hospitalized, those kind of things. To minimize exposure, passengers will be limited to only taking off one piece of luggage with essential items. The rest of the luggage will remain on the cruise ship, and they will follow a certain sanitation process to remove that luggage from the cruise ship and eventually return that luggage to the passengers. Port Everglades also requiring that the cruise line come up with a plan, saying very specifically, no less than 24 hours in advance of the start of debarkation, the cruise line will present a security plan for review and approval, how passengers will disembark orderly, safely, and in compliance with health advisories, i.e. social distancing. Failure to maintain good order may result in immediate suspension of debarkation until the situation is under control. While some of these requirements may seem strict, I'm excited that this kind of dialogue is going on. I would much rather have this type of involvement between the local authorities and the cruise line to make sure that people are not unaccounted for when they get off the cruise ship than just letting people off the cruise ship. I'm excited that these people will have a place to go to. We mentioned yesterday that there have been positive tests of the virus on the Zaandam, and at the same time, while it's not been tied specifically to the virus, there have been 4 deaths on that ship of elderly passengers. And so I think getting these people off the cruise ship, I'm excited about that. Now, again, this hasn't been approved. Once the transit through the Panama Canal happens, that ship will be about 72 hours away from Fort Lauderdale, about 3 days. And so this will play out over the upcoming week as the council will vote on Tuesday whether to allow this to go forward. Again, there has to be a time scheduled for the ship to transit the Panama Canal, then 72 hours after that. And so in reality, these passengers that are in isolation, that are in quarantine on the Zaandam, they will most likely continue to be in that scenario for the next week. At this point in time, Holland America not released any further information about the health of the passengers on the Zaandam if there is an increase in cases, but they did acknowledge that the Panamanian government had provided a way for them to transit through the Panama Canal, and they would be announcing later what the actual plan would be for that cruise ship. The Zaandam, not the only cruise ship with passengers out on the sea. It's a tumultuous time for sure. Not only all of the change and challenge in the world, but even in that cruise life, there are people still trying to navigate it, still trying to get home, and at least my thoughts and hopes are that it all works out for the best. Thank you so much for stopping by, getting the update. If you found the information helpful, please support the channel by hitting the like button. Thank you so much. This is Tony for La Lita Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.